And he can also swing for the fences. Welcome to the Voice of College Football here on our Buckeyes channel. Hope you've locked it in, meaning you've subscribed. You have turned on that bell for the notifications. And hey, even before we open our mouths, you could always hit the like button, anticipating another sterling show out of Tony Gerdeman and Steve Hellwagon right here on Buckeyes Live. Steve joining us, of course, from Bucknuts 247 Sports. Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Huddle. Buckeye Weekly is the podcast. And then, of course, College Football Playbook right here on YouTube. We will do our best to drop that link in the chat so you can follow Tony over to College Football Playbook. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing great.
Doing well.
Good. So I reference Ole Miss's, now Ohio State's TYWONE Malone, defensive lineman, 6'4", 315, maybe the most impressive stat that I've seen on him. 3 home runs and 19 at-bats. Pretty good home run ratio. That would maybe even best Barry Bonds during the steroid days. Pretty good. What do you think, Steve?
Apparently is a really good pinch hitter for the Ole Miss baseball team. And as part of that, my buddy who covers Ole Miss said he is outstanding in those midweek non-conference games against non-Power 5 teams. So I don't think Vanderbilt or whoever else is tops in the SEC is going to let him hit a big fly against them. But it's got to be awe-inspiring to see him go in that home run trot that, 315 pounds, or to see him try and, chop her to short. Here goes Malone. It's going to be a close play. And he is safe.
Yeah.
That's got to be something to see him lumbering down to first.
Steve, straight ball he hit very much. Curveball is the problem.
Yes. To heck with you, Joe Boo. If you know how to help me, I do it myself.
And maybe some of those, midweek games against Belhaven, or I'm trying to remember who. Shoot, I covered SEC baseball for 7 years.
Miss.
Some of those midweek games, Delta State.
Yeah.
They're a favorite there for the Ole Miss and Mississippi State baseball teams to beat up on 23-2 on a Tuesday night. That, maybe some of those curveballs look pretty close to facsimiles of fastballs, just at 81 miles an hour.
Ohio State played Central Florida last night in a baseball game here in Columbus. I'm like, Central Florida got on a plane and came all the way to Columbus to play in front of 500 people. I don't get that. What is the point of that? To play one game, unless they're playing another one tonight. Maybe they stayed over 2 nights or something. Maybe their academic calendar's done and they're just looking for games. I don't know, but it's
might be a Midwest swing type of thing.
Now that the academic calendar's done, they could hit a couple places on midweek.
It is always interesting to me. It's when
go ahead,
you have
Tony.
these guys who play multiple sports, and like JT Tuimoloau, I want to play basketball in college along with football, and TYWONE Malone wants to play baseball in college along with football. At some point, they come to the realization that you want to do this for a living, you got to pick one or the other. And for a guy who is 6'4", 310 pounds or whatever, you're probably going to have to side with the football portion of things and give up. Sometimes you got to give up your love. Like DeJuan Jones had to give up his love of basketball to go play football, and and he becomes a 4th round draft pick, and perhaps was expected to go higher than that. But at some point with big time football, and maybe Ole Miss isn't big time football, but at some point you don't have time. You don't have, you have time maybe to do both, but you're not going to make the most out of one or the other by doing both. And I think at Ohio State, we were trying to think about this on Buckeye Weekly a couple days ago. The last 2 sport athlete at Ohio State who played football and basketball, was it Nate Sally back in 2002, 2003 with
it's been a while.
It's been a long while.
Yeah. It's hard to do. And particularly, as I understand it, the sticking point here was he wasn't around at all for spring football last year or this year. And I mean, that really gets in the way of your improvement and, trying to win a job and everything else. So To me, I think that it's going to make sense if he just specializes on football at Ohio State. And certainly Ohio State needs the help at defensive tackle. They've got some pretty good guys there with Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton. Some other guys there that really I think are going to do a good job this coming year. But he'll definitely help the depth there. There's a couple other guys there, names.
Mike Hall.
Mike Hall, definitely. Jaden McKenzie, is he still considered a defensive tackle?
Mm-hmm. But yeah.
And he wrote Canoe as well.
Yeah.
So there's 5.
Yeah, I think what TYWONE Malone does, I think he gives them a 4th guy in the rotation, perhaps. And I don't know that they had a 4th guy before this because it was just Mike Hall, Ty Hamilton, and Tyleik Williams. So this maybe gives them a second 3 technique to go with Tyleik Williams while Ty Hamilton and Mike Hall continue to share those nose tackle reps, not knowing exactly what you're going to get from Hero Canoe, and also kind of knowing exactly what you're going to get from Jaden McKenzie, who's been at Ohio State for 4 years now. This may be his 5th year, and hasn't played. So you can't expect him in his 4th or 5th year to finally be a guy that is going to contribute, and not just contribute, but make plays on in that rotation. And so I think this is sizable for that. And they're bringing in 3 defensive tackles in this freshman class. Will Smith was on campus for the spring. We got hurt, but Jason Moore, Caden McDonald, those are all highly rated guys, but you don't know what you're going to get. And so you can't rely on a freshman defensive tackle. So I think this was a move that I don't expect him to start, but it helps the depth. And I think it makes them feel better about how they will rotate those guys up front.
And TYWONE Malone may be the highest ranked guy coming out of high school of all these people. He was like in the top 60 or 65 or 70 in the 24/7 composite nationally, going to Ole Miss 2 years ago, redshirted in 21 and played sparingly last year in 2022. So he's got 3 years of eligibility left, which is tremendous upside as well. So the second guy they've gotten from Ole Miss, I got a little bit of the backstory. I guess Charlie Partridge, is he now at Michigan? Is that right? I think. I could be wrong. Defensive assistant recruited a bunch of guys like Malone and Davison Igbinosun from New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and then Lane Kiffin fired him in January. And a lot of those guys transferred out of the program, like Igbinosun. But this player, Malone, stuck around because he was still playing baseball. So, So at any rate, to me, it makes sense at this juncture that Ohio State went out. The question about scholarships, they now are at 88. They are 3 over the limit. And we'll need to get that down to 85, I presume, by the start of the summer program in June, because you can't give housing and room and board to 88 players, I don't think, at one time. So if everybody's reporting on that date, June 10th or whatever it might be, I think you got to be down to 85 by that point. So we'll see in the next month, I guess, where things are going.
Yeah, I'm expecting some medical hardships here coming up, and graduation was just Sunday. So those players that graduated, or anybody who has graduated, can leave whenever, like anytime. They didn't need to hit the portal before it closed. So they're still going to get to 85. So don't worry. And it wouldn't shock me if they're below that by the time this all ends. And I've seen speculation that maybe Lorenzo Styles Jr. is paying his own way for the semester. So I haven't been able to confirm that, but it would kind of be like a gray shirt transfer if that were to happen, where you pay until January, then you go on scholarship. But I don't think they'll necessarily need to do that, or like I said, I don't even know if they're planning that. That was just a rumor I've seen floated on Twitter. But they've never not gotten 85, and this won't be the year that they do not.
TYWONE Malone's most notable play of the season, on the stat sheet at least, was a sack of Tyler Shook of Texas Tech right at the end of the year in the Texas Bowl, as Ole Miss got trampled by the Red Raiders in that one. And did you guys see, I'm guessing that you did because this was bandied about across social media, not just in Ohio State camps, but in the Big Ten and otherwise. So the recruiting budgets that came out for, again, not just the Big Ten, but the entire nation. So, of course, if somebody would have asked me who spends the most money in the Big Ten on recruiting, I would say, well, I would think Ohio State does because they recruit better than anybody else by far. Yes, Michigan fans, we know this year, but I'm talking about overall, it's not even close. Okay, so Ohio State is the best recruiting in the conference, so they must spend the most money. Well, I'm sure there are a lot of factors that go into this that are just kind of because the money is counted during the fiscal year that something ran over, or there was an initiative that they got started early. And, with various programs that don't make this completely accurate in regards to getting an assessment on what type of resources are put forth by each one of these universities. But, Rutgers is obviously the one that stands out.
Yeah. I think what this doesn't tell us is what's factored into this, because at Ohio State, certainly you've got Mark Pantoni, who's the director of player personnel overseeing recruiting. There's a young lady, last name Dunstan, who is kind of the on-campus coordinator for all recruiting activities. Terwilliger is the liaison to high school coaches. Hinton is also kind of involved in some of that. And then you've got 3 or 4 more people in Mark Pantoni's office who break down tape all day long, make contacts with high school coaches all day long. And so you're talking about, does this include what, salary and benefits for all, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those people, plus the expenses incurred in bringing recruits to Columbus for official visits, plus hotel, plus food and entertainment for all those visits, plus all the travel that Ryan Day and all of the assistant coaches have going on the road in the weeks that they're allowed to go on the road in May and November, December, and during game weekends where, they can buzz out to a game somewhere on a Friday. That costs money, and particularly if you're hopping a plane real quick to get back for a game on Saturday or something, which is probably rare that they would do that. But the off week, certainly all 11 guys or 10 guys, 10 assistants and the head coach are out, at games. So that's a lot of, expenses. I find it hard to believe they did all that for $1.3 million. So I think something's missing here from the equation.
Well, I also think that if Michigan and Penn State aren't spending more than Ohio State, how do they expect to compete with Ohio State? Ohio State has a lot of factors going for itself that, the brand is out there, and the successes I've been seeing, and the production with the NFL does a lot of the recruiting for them. So they don't need to tell kids that. Kids already know that. And so I think when maybe you have to work harder, spend more to let kids know what your product is, yeah, it's going to cost you more. And like I said, if you're going to spend less than Ohio State, you're going to lose. So you have to spend more there to keep pace. And right now, Michigan, the money's going to a good cause right now because they've got the #1 class in the nation. Now we know that that's not going to stay there. It just won't. And go ahead and get upset if you want, Michigan fans. But we were having the same discussion last year about Notre Dame's class. It's not going to be #1. Being #1 in May is meaningless. It's even less meaningless than the September Heismans that Michigan has on their shelves. What this does is they're doing well now. A lot of it's quantity as much as quality, but every December and then every February, the SEC comes in and they rise to the top in terms of the rankings. I think, when was the last time Ohio State finished with the #1 class? I don't know if they've done it in the internet era, but they've been second a couple of times. after the fact that 2002 class probably should have been number one, but it's not going to happen for Michigan. Now, I think if they can finish in the top 5, that would be huge for them. And, we'll see if they can.
To your point, Tony, I was having this battle the other day because, yes, Michigan fans or anyone that's doing well in recruiting, beat your chest, boast all you want. That's great that you're doing well in recruiting. But in terms of latching onto this number 1 ranking, all you have to do is do some basic math here. So the basic math is that if you look at the average player ranking, you've got 91.4 for Michigan. Don't even take Ohio State. Let's take Georgia at 94.4. Okay. Michigan's got 16 commits. Georgia has 11. Now, the numbers are obviously not going to work out evenly with the number of signees at the end, but let's say they all sign 25. Well, let's make it easy. Let's say Michigan signs 30, even if they sign 32 to make the math really easy, and they double the number of commits. Well, to catch Georgia's 94.4 average, the average Michigan signee out of the next 16 would have to be a 97 or 98. So with only about 6 more that they're going to sign, we don't know about flips, but less flip from these type schools. Michigan's going to have to average like a 102 player rating going forward to keep up with Georgia, just Georgia. And there's some down the line that are nearly as impressive, like South Carolina is doing well at this point, and even Florida. And of course, Bama's lurking at 95.4 with only 6 commits.
And Michigan leading the nation with the number of commits. So as I said, the quantity is the big thing right now with 16 commits. Interesting to me, USC only has 3 commits at this point, which I don't know if what's going on there. I know they like the portal, but 3 at this point doesn't seem like a lot. But Michigan and Wake Forest both have 16 commits. Wake Forest too will finish somewhere around 50th in the recruiting rankings. If that, right now they're 12th, to give you an idea of what a large number of commits can do for you when everybody else has 10, 9, 13, stuff like that. So I hope Michigan can get back to where they used to be back in the 90s and in the early 2000s with their recruiting classes being top 5. We'll see. You probably need some more 4 stars and 5 stars than 3 stars at this point, though.
Yeah, everybody knows my comment on this. I don't really get too wrapped up in recruiting class rankings because there's a lot baked into the formula that's just doesn't mean anything. And I've always said, rank the first 20 players in everybody's class and tell me, who did the best out of the first 20 players. I don't need, Alabama with 30 players outpointing an Ohio State class with 21 or 22 and everybody, beating their chest about that, because Ohio State's first 20 could very well be better than Alabama's first 20. And those are the ones that make the difference when it comes to winning the Big Ten or playing for a national championship, not the punter or the long snapper or the, whoever, the last 5, that are just add-ons that they're hoping to hit on, or will process within 18 months. So, that's just, my way of always looking at it. Ohio State had the number 1 class in 1996, and that was a really good class with David Boston, Andy Katzenmoyer, Michael Wiley, and a bunch of other really, really good players. 2002 was outstanding as well. They were number 2, Maurice Claret, although you only got 1 year with him. Justin Zwick, Troy Smith won the Heisman Trophy, Santonio Holmes, and so on and so on and so on.
And those are the 3-star guys.
Yeah, those were the guys down the line. You had a lot of
Kudla,
5-star,
DeAndrea,
Kudla, DeAndrea, Derek Morris that never really did anything. So
Bobby Carpenter, 4-star guy, Stan White,
AJ Hawk, Stan White. Yep, that was quite a class. Doug Daddish played a lot of football. So maybe Rob Sims and Mangold too.
Mangold, they were freshmen.
Yeah. I mean, per capita NFL wise, that class may be the best Ohio State's had in the modern era, because it was a big class, and they also sent a lot of guys to the NFL. But since then, it seems to me they've been number 2 maybe twice, but the years don't pop into my head. I did an analysis on this during COVID when I was sitting here looking at the 4 walls and had nothing else better to talk about than, recruiting from 14 years ago. So, but yeah, they've, and obviously with Urban and now with Ryan Day, they've been in the top 5 or the top 10, I think just about every year. Maybe Day's first year when there was the transition, it was not a top 10 class, but otherwise every other year it's been in the top 10.
2017 and 2019 for OSU, number 2 class.
Okay.
And that first Day class, right, Tony, was a great class. It just was low in number. So it was like number 13, but the average player rating was like number 3 in the country. I think they only had like 16 commits, 13
Yeah,
commits.
that could
It was
be
really low.
Yeah, 17 commits, ranked 14th overall. But yeah, the 9202 was, I'm just scrolling here, was 3rd behind Alabama and Georgia. Yeah.
Comments and questions, leave them in the chat. You catch our attention with a super chat as well. We appreciate that. Terry, thank you so much for the contribution. Do you believe building a great roster like Ohio State has puts even more pressure on the poor starting quarterback, who ever that might be, to not screw it up?
Well, poor is a unique choice of words, considering he's probably making more money this calendar year than a lot of people. I'll probably say that. And I know the form in which it was intended, that somebody who's put into a tough situation. And, he's been at Ohio State for 2 years. He saw how CJ Stroud handled the spotlight. He handled it like a man. When they lost, he stood right up there and took his medicine. And, they didn't always lose because of something he did or didn't do, but he was always front and center to share, what happened from his aspect or his standpoint when they did lose. And so McCord has seen the good and the bad from afar, off in the wings and in the meeting room with CJ Stroud, and he understands what the stakes are. And this is the kind of pressure that kids like this, who are highly recruited by all the top schools, that they relish and they want to play in the big time games in front of sold out stadiums and 20, 30 million people watching on television with, huge stakes. And so this is what he chose to do with his life. And he is one of the very best college quarterbacks out there, even though we really haven't seen him play a lot of college football. But I go out on a limb there, and I believe that he can be and will be that. So to me, there's pressure in everybody at Ohio State. On every play has got their job that they need to fulfill, or it could mean a loss for the team on any given play. If somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, it could drag the whole team down. So, but everyone's always looking at that quarterback position like it is the leader and it is the one that matters the most. I mean, Stroud was getting, pilloried for throwing for 450 yards in a loss to Oregon, or, over 300 yards in a loss to Georgia. It wasn't his fault. It was the lack of defense that killed the Buckeyes in most of these losses that they've had the last 2 years. So to me, if there's more pressure on McCord or Brown, whoever ends up being the quarterback, I don't find that to be a bad thing. I think that, taking care of the football, playing free and playing easy, but also playing with that fear in the back of your mind and not make a mistake is probably not that bad of a way to do it.
Yeah, there's pressure regardless of the talent on the team. So I would put it this way. Would you rather, if you are the quarterback, would you feel more pressure on you if you had, say, the 2011 receiving core of Devin Smith and Evan Spencer as true freshmen, and I don't know, Chris Fields?
Posey.
Well, he was suspended at that point, so we're not even going to put him in there.
5 games. Yeah.
So like, do you feel more pressure there, or do you feel more pressure having Oh, I've got Marvin Harrison. Oh, I've got Emeka Ibuka. Oh, I've got Julian Fleming. Oh, I've got Jane Ballard. I feel pretty good. Like, which gives you more pressure? Which makes you feel more pressure? Having an incredible amount of talent to help you out, or guys that you don't know if they're going to run the right route?
Pressure is relative too. There are athletes, and when I say athletes, I mean I'll put us all in that athlete term. If we ever played at any level, there can be pressure for the kid who's playing Little League and walking up to the plate in a game that's being watched by 13 people. He feels pressure. So if you don't want to feel pressure, I guess you go to Indiana, and they luck out because, bam, this guy that we would have never recruited because we would have never thought we would have gotten a 5-star quarterback, he landed with us. Well, they're still playing under pressure, being at Indiana, playing Purdue for the Old Oak and Bucket game. That seems like a joke in comparison, but you're playing in front of 40 or 50,000 people. You're playing on the Big Ten network. A lot of people would consider that to be pressure, more pressure than most of us feel in our daily lives. So, yes, to their point, I would think that you would want to have the tools available to you to succeed and be playing with all this massive talent, not disparaging in any way that question, because yes, there was pressure there to say, yeah, the rest of this team is not going to screw it up. Let's say that's a given. It's not, but let's say it's a given. I've never thrown a meaningful pass, and I am the quarterback, and everybody's looking at me. I can't screw this up. So I get the question. All right. Well, I was going to move on from there, but Sue put in the chat a narrative out there that Ohio State's going to be pursuing a transfer quarterback. However, that would have to be a graduate transfer. I don't know who's in the portal that's of any worth at this point.
I've seen this on Twitter a couple times. I think it goes back to the rumor that TJ Finley, former Auburn quarterback, visited back in the spring. I had somebody, an NFL guy, hit me up. It's like, this guy, I don't know why Ohio State's looking at him. I'm like, I don't know that Ohio State is looking at him. He just keeps circling the rumor mill with TJ Finley, and I don't know, maybe as a tight end more than a quarterback. Not that they need a tight end because they've got 6 of them. So I don't know that there's any truth to that, but I haven't been told that there is or there isn't. But Ryan Day wants 4 scholarship quarterbacks. He's got them. I don't think he would ever expect to be able to have 5, and I don't know why you would need 5, especially that fit. If that's the 5th guy, it doesn't really serve you any purposes.
Yeah, I agree. I hadn't heard that at all. I think they've also got another walk-on or 2 as well to help them get through practices with scout team stuff and whatever. So I don't foresee that is going to happen, particularly given the scholarship crunch that they seem to appear to be in. I mean, there's rumors out there that they've got a plan to get it down to 85 pretty comfortably. And as Tony said, it wouldn't surprise him if they're under 85 by the time the season starts, because what could happen is the summer is very grueling. In fact, they're in a little hiatus right now as they just had the end of the spring semester, and now they have the May semester that's kind of going on right now. A lot of them are in school, and there's a strength program for the May semester, and then really starts up big when the high school freshmen get in there. The high school signees, the true freshmen, arrive in early June. So when summer semester begins, and there may be a lot of guys that don't want to go through that knowing that they are not going to play. So they could very easily just have the talk with them and say, look, you don't want to do this here. Go look around, go find something somewhere else, whatever, because you are not in our plans to play, barring a catastrophe this coming year. They're pretty deep in a lot of positions right now. And I'm really not concerned about depth anywhere across this team right now after the way things have gone.
We discussed a couple of weeks ago that the ESPN Football Power Index has placed Ohio State at number 1. Jim James has done some counting for us to let us know since 1950, Ohio State has been preseason number 1. I am guessing, according to the AP, is his mode there, and then not won the national championship. I don't think that that's any kind of concern. Again, it's nice for the fans to say, hey, we're the number one team in the country. But if you're rolling down the stretch at 7-0, 8-0 at number 3 in the country, it's not going to much matter.
Yeah, I don't think I also don't think there's any concern that Ohio State will be number 1 in the AP or the coaches poll. I think it's Georgia and Alabama, and then maybe Michigan, and then maybe Ohio State. So
how about them dogs?
And with the dogs, with maybe Tyler Buckner puts Alabama over the top in those preseason votes. You don't know.
You don't know.
I got a pretty good idea though.
When I saw transfer
one good
quarterback,
series for Notre Dame against Ohio State.
When I saw transfer quarterback being bantied about in the chat, I was racking my brain for somebody that joined the portal like a Sam Hartman type of edition that's going to sail past everybody and be, okay, we have talent on this roster, but we want the experienced talent of a guy that's going to lead us to the promised land. But that guy, I think the latest or the last rumor that was possible was Miami's Tyler Van Dyke being rumored to go into the portal.
Yeah, well, there were rumors that Alabama was back channeling him big time to get him into the portal, and perhaps John Ruiz ponied up for a guy who was not very good last year, but was okay the year before. I don't watch Miami football because it doesn't exist in the world of high
come
level.
on, Tony, it exists for me.
I know, no, I was just messing with you, but they need to keep their guys, and they did with him so far, because at this point, unless he's a graduate, and he's been around for a while now. That's the other thing. You get through this portal and it closes, and coaches breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief, but then come commencements and you're like, oh no, like, is somebody going to jump now? And it's just every day. And then we don't even need to talk about this, but the whole gambling thing, like, just one more thing for coaches to worry about. It's crazy.
There are signs posted at the Woody Hayes Center. Don't bet on it. That old NCAA slogan, and it's there. I mean, it's real. It's kind of like, I used to go into the Reds clubhouse when I did work with the Reds Report, and it's posted right there. Absolutely forbidden gambling, boom, right there. And Pete Rose walked past that sign every day and still did it. And he's paid the price for it. So anybody who is stupid enough to be involved in college athletics and also trying to gamble on it, they're gonna pay the consequences and the price, just as the Alabama baseball guy is, and whatever's going on at Iowa. And I don't know the Iowa and Iowa State stories very well of what's happened out there. Brant posted a question, directed at me. You're not concerned about the offensive line depth. I mean, depth is something different than quality. Depth is number of bodies, and they're bringing in the transfer from San Diego State, Simmons, to help bolster that number situation and hopefully the quality situation at tackle. They have 4 offensive linemen coming in the 2024 class. I think they just signed 4, at least, I think, in this last class. So they have bodies, Brant, and I appreciate where you're coming from on that. Is it quality depth? Is it good enough to win Big Ten championships and contend for a college football playoff depth? Well, they're going to put that to the test this fall. So, that question is still out there, but depth in terms of numbers, I'm not all that concerned about.
With that in mind, I saw a question on Twitter last week, and I posted it on our message board. What 3 Buckeyes would you take from the past to put on this team? And so we did a podcast about it yesterday. And the crazy thing about it is 2 of mine were on offense. And the thing is, like, you think you just need to help the defense, but I mean, you look at what Ohio State needs, and they need Orlando Pace. That's the one thing they need.
That was the first name that popped in my head, exactly. Orlando Pace.
Same here.
And I have always told the story that I went to a spring practice in 97 or 98, and the offensive line was getting worn out. And this boy who was sitting in front of me turned to his dad, and he said, "Ooh, where's Orlando Pace when you need him?" I remember that vividly from 25 years ago. this boy saying that to his dad at a practice at Ohio Stadium. Regarding the next name that came up was Nick and/or Joey Bosa, I think, because then we would know for sure that there's going to be pressure on the quarterback. I think much of the undoing of the defense was the secondary was kind of left hung out to dry because it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The opposing quarterback had all day to try and get the ball out, and you can't ask your corners or your safeties to cover for more than 3 or 4 seconds. It just isn't, because there's the offense runs scramble drills. They know where they're going and you don't. And to me, that's the biggest thing on defense is a legitimate pass rusher. Maybe, insert name of the best cover corner that they've had in wherever. Although I think Burke and Hancock and Igbenison are going to be just fine, the three of them, maybe even Jay or Brown. But yeah, that's kind of a stilted question. I mean, yeah, sure, I'd like to take an NFL number 1, number 2, number 3 draft pick from the past and just shove them right in there. We'll win it all, no doubt.
The Rod Farva goes with Orlando Pace, Chase Young, and Justin Fields.
I got in an argument yesterday about Fields. I thought Fields was a great college quarterback, and then I thought Stroud surpassed him in terms of at least being a better thrower. And the guys I was with yesterday, I talked with Tony about it, 2 of our friends, Kyle Rowland and Dave Briggs from the Toledo Blade. I was with them yesterday, and they're like, they thought Stroud was the better thrower, but Fields was the better college quarterback because he did have that running component, and it did come into play for him in several of his games. He did make a difference running the football. So I guess it's different strokes, different folks. But Stroud to me was, if they've had a guy who could throw the ball better than CJ Stroud, I'd like to see it. And I thought Fields in that realm was awesome, but I think Stroud was the better thrower.
Yeah, I would agree. Stroud is the best thrower, passer in Ohio State history. Justin Fields for me is the best quarterback in Ohio State history, and he completed 70% of his passes. So like he was the best passer in Ohio State history. You could argue Dwayne Haskins, I guess, but and then CJ Stroud surpassed the passing portion. But in terms of quarterback, if there's any quarterback that Justin Fields would be my number 1 choice as Ohio State quarterbacks, just because he could do everything. He could thread the needle, or he could, take 160 yards, and you can always use that guy.
Good point by Rod. Duly noted.
Fields, yeah, and there's a lot of people, sorry, Mark, that will have an issue taking CJ Stroud because of his record against Michigan.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, I think he takes way too much heat for that. He's got a sordid legacy. I can't think of an Ohio State quarterback that will have a more divided.
That accomplished without accomplishing anything.
Yes.
Yeah, I assume that will soften, over the years, but we will see.
I would want to fit a cornerback into that 3-man rotation and start with maybe like Antoine Winfield and then review all the guys since then to see if anybody could surpass. I don't think anybody can surpass him as a total player.
He is a dog.
Absolutely.
And this is what I suggested on the podcast, Antoine Winfield as your nickel corner.
Yeah.
And then you'd let him run all over the middle of the field, taking out slot receivers, blitz him when you want to blitz him, and he would tackle everything.
Yep. Great player.
We were talking over-unders on a couple different shows that we did this week, and I went back because I don't keep track of my over-under predictions, my win total predictions. Somebody corrected me today, called me a mush, whatever that is, because I was using the term over-unders and not win totals. So I will use the term win totals to make a random person out there happy or more respectful of me. Okay, so... And I went back and I looked because I was never into selecting those until a couple of years ago. And Steve Dace would bring me on Michigan podcast, and I would suddenly have to react to the win totals, and I thought, okay, well, I might as well make my predictions and throw them out there. So I looked at last year, and last year I'm not going to go through all of them, but I hit on 3 out of 5 leading into my final 3-pack. So I was 3-2, but I came in at the end and said, look at this: Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, all 10.5 over on all 3 of them. Go over on all 3. You're going to hit on 2 at least, and you're good to go. And then, of course, they all hit the over. So 6-2 for the over-unders win totals last season for me. I see Ohio State and Michigan at 10.5, both of them. And, of course, Ohio State has one legitimate non-conference game to play.
Over and over. I think Ohio State has a chance to start 11-0. I think Michigan, they have a tough game at Penn State. That is going to be a really tough game. Ohio State's got a tough game at Notre Dame, but I think Ohio State's got the better team. Clearly, I think Penn State has closed the gap a little bit with Michigan and Ohio State. It's just, can Penn State, take that last step, that final step into the divide and win a division and win a game that'll help them win the division. So that's the big question to me. Again, we were debating this yesterday and about somebody, one of the national guys, had Michigan as his top pick for the division. And it's, they're hosting Ohio State, and they've beaten Ohio State 2 years in a row. It's not an outlandish thing to say by any regard. It's just, I wouldn't say it's common sense, but it does hold water. I mean, there's a reason why you would do that. So, is it in Ohio State's head now? Do they now have Michigan on the brain that, and perhaps they've been too guilty that they put everything they've had into that game, and when it started to go sideways, they panicked and ended up in a state of shock. I mean, almost, it seemed like last year with the way they finished that game. So I don't know. They're going to have to go up there and really go in there and take the crowd out of the game early and jump on them and play great defense. And Blake Corum, all he needs is just a small crease, and it's 70 yards, and that's a problem. So they're going to have to play really, 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 really sound on defense. And we've seen nothing the last 2 years, although 2 different coordinators, to indicate that they're capable of doing that. But, maybe this will be the year that they do that. And I don't mean holding Youngstown State to 21 yards or Indiana to 14 points or, one of their crossovers. Purdue to 21 points or whatever. It's doing it in the big game. It's doing it when the chips are all on the table and everything's out there, and you have to do it in that one day, in that one moment. You cannot make a mistake, let alone 5 or 6 of them. So it's a lot to ask of guys who have never come through in that situation yet in their college career. Are they going to do it this time? That's what we're looking for.
I do think the road trips for Ohio State to Purdue and Wisconsin have not been kind over the years. And even though Ohio State generally comes away with the win, the games are close in Wisconsin. And of course, we remember what happened in 2018 in Purdue. So they'll be favored, obviously, in both of those, but still, they've been favored in the past over there as well. But I think there's a real good chance that both Ohio State and Michigan are 11-0 when they play, because the road games that they do have could pose some trouble, but both teams should have enough talent and depth. We also saw the Illinois game against Michigan last year where Illinois almost got Michigan. Sometimes you have those games, and it just depends on how you close them out. I do want to mention Justin Courtney saying Stroud getting upset over OSU recruiting Quinn Ewers tells you everything you need to know about him. I think it's kind of silly that Stroud was upset about that if he was. I think maybe he bought into what people on social media were saying about Stroud's coming in, or Quinn Ewers is coming in to start. I think what my point here is that Michael Jordan used to take everything personally and get disrespected by everything and create lies to get himself upset about stuff. And he's the greatest competitor of all time. But if CJ Stroud is upset about something, then, well, that just plays into a soft persona that people perceive him to have. And so, choose your own view of disrespect, how you want to play into your own, I guess, narrative for what you think of that player. But when Michael Jordan did it, it was because he was the greatest competitor of all time.
Yeah, I didn't take it that way. And really, I don't know what point it is for him to say that today. And I don't know what the point is to report that today. I mean, I don't know what was gained by any of that. I think, and as I said, I put this on Twitter, my recollection at an OSU summer camp, I was standing there on the sideline, and CJ Stroud came over to the guy standing right next to me, and with a look of disbelief in his eyes, as much as anything, said, he's saying he's going to come in here and take this job away from me. Just kind of like pissed off about it, just kind of like, boy, who's this guy think he is, type thing. I mean, they're 2 years apart. I mean, in age, and he was jumping up a year or whatever it was to come to Ohio State to steal a job from a guy, who was going to be in his second year of college.
A week into camp.
Yeah, and going to get there in the middle of preseason camp. I mean, it just – I think the way it's been reported and perceived by people is different than what my direct knowledge of what he was saying to somebody the day it came down was like total disbelief that somebody would have this point of view and not understand that we do wear caps and sleeves at this level. It's not just show up and play, and unfortunately it's not a rotisserie league. It's not, hey, I'll trade you my left fielder, you give me your shortstop, and we'll both improve in the standings. It doesn't work like that. It's a people business. It's an experience business. There's a lot to it. It's a, what do you got from your neck up business? Because, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you ain't got it from here to here, you ain't going to beat nobody doing nothing in this bracket. I can guarantee you.
Yeah. With what you're saying, what Sue is saying there about just the anger of it all, it was CJ Stroud's, Jordan meme of, I took that personally. That's basically what that was.
Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not. There's a number of directions we can go, but since the most immediate would be camp over the weekend, Steve, you want to take us in that direction?
Oh, yeah. We had a great day down at Fortress Obetz on Sunday. They had the Under Armour Camp Series came through Columbus. There were probably 300 guys in the 2024, 25, 26 classes that were on display. And a tremendous camp day, I thought. You had Tom Luganbill from ESPN was there. Some of the other guys, Craig Hobart, Billy Tucker, some of their other Pepper Johnson was there working with linebackers, and he's obviously a great one in Ohio State lore and everything he's done pros and high school level, coaching and whatever since then. So a lot of talent was there. 6 of the verbal commitments were there. The Armstrong brothers and Mark Nave on the offensive line. Garrett Stover was with the linebackers. Let's see, that's 4 of them. The wide receiver, Mylan Graham from Indiana, national top 20, top 25 player in that 2024 class. He was there. I'm missing one more, Tony. Oh, the running back, Sam Williams-Dixon from North. But as nice as he looked, I thought the guy who looked the best in a T-shirt and shorts was Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson.
from Cleveland St. Joe's, a 2025 running back. And Tony Alford and Ryan Day got to attend this camp. Ordinarily, this would be closed to college coaches, but their two sons were participating in the camp. RJ Day, who is a 2027 quarterback. Does he go to Watterson? Does that sound right? Or where does he go to school?
I don't know. Was it?
I think he's in middle school, and I'm not sure which high school he's going to
Didn't
attend.
Urban's son go to Watterson?
Yeah,
So
I'm not sure where
Ryan.
RJ is going to funnel into. It could be one of the public schools on the north side. I'm not sure, but and I honestly don't have any idea what neighborhood, what high rent district Ryan Day lives in, to say that. But at any rate, just so much talent was there. One of the guys who really stood out was Chris Henry Jr., the son, obviously, of the late Chris Henry, former Bengals wide receiver. He will be a sophomore, I believe, 23. Yeah, sophomore at Cincinnati Withrow, I think is where he'll be. And he was one of the top wide receivers there. And we may have another Marvin Harrison Jr. situation on our hands here in a few years. So he is like 6'5", 190. Just imagine when he's 210 trying to take the football. I mean, this could be like a David Boston on steroids type thing. And
Was it that David Boston?
Not to say that he would take steroids as David Boston did, but later on at least. But he's going to be something. So I saw a lot of great players there. Tony, you can share your 2 cents. You were right down there. We were dodging raindrops early in the day, and then by the end of the day, like Ohio weather, it went from 50 and rainy to sunny and 80 by the time we were out of there.
Yeah, I came home with a sunburn, and my wife yelled at me. She's like, "Why didn't you put any, protection, suntan lotion or whatever on it?" And I was like, it was raining when I for the first hour and a half of this thing. But yeah, so now I'm dealing with a sunburn. But it was really impressive, and it was a long day. But Garrett Stover is no longer a safety. He looks every bit like a linebacker who can move. But it was Bo Jackson that really, really, really impressed me. Just seeing him run. Nobody stood a chance with him in the 101s and the passing. Not that they should. Sam Williams-Dixon, I think, is going to be interesting to watch this year, because I think you might start seeing some sort of an Xavier Johnson type of role emerging for him and his future at Ohio State. But getting to see Mylan Graham, who is really, really smooth and really, really fast, that was good. But Chris Henry just stands out, literally. Like, he's a legit 6'5". My only concern with him is if he's already 6'5", what happens if he becomes 6'8"? Because you don't see 6'8" wide receivers around. It's not something that happens, and he's not got the frame for a tight end, and you wouldn't do that to him. You just wonder, like, he's up on the on the growing, but he looks really, really good. Got to see Garrett Stover intercept a pass intended for Jordan Marshall, which was great for the Ohio State fans to see on social media. But Jordan Marshall also looked good. He got an invite to the Under Armour game, but it was Sam Williams-Dixon and Bo Jackson who were the running back MVPs of the day. So it was getting to see Deontay Armstrong, which I thought he moves really well for a big guy. Looks like maybe possibly a future left tackle, and his brother Devontae, probably an inside guy. Mark Nave, talking to him afterwards. He's like, all of these guys, talking to them, really quality kids, and you can see why Ohio State likes them in that terms, off the field stuff. But Mark Nave talking about, he's going to play interior at Ohio State, but to help his team this year, he's probably going to move to left tackle, but also work on snapping as a center, just so he could play all 3 interior positions at Ohio State, once he gets here. So a lot of good kids with some just sharp heads on their shoulders.
Yeah, the quarterback position was really well stocked. Bryce Underwood is the number 6 overall player in the country in the 2025 class, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. He's from Belleville, Michigan, and he finished up his day. He was throwing in front of Ryan Day for most of the day, and then he went over to Ohio State and made an unofficial visit, about 20-minute drive from Obetz up to Ohio State. to make an unofficial visit on his way back to Michigan. And I think Bryce is a guy that has already said that Michigan is probably not where he's going to go. So he's pretty wide open. I don't know, of course, in that 2025 class, you've also got Ryan Montgomery from Findlay, who Ohio State has offered. His ranking kind of lags behind a little bit. He's in the 150 to 175 range nationally. But he's got the offers to prove it. And he has been on 8 college campuses: Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan State. There's 6 of them right there. And there's a couple more that I can't recollect off the top of my head. But he's a guy that Ohio State, obviously his brother Luke is an offensive lineman for the Buckeyes. And Ryan Montgomery was honored at this camp. He received an invite to their Future 50 camp, which will be next month down at, I believe, IMG Academy in Florida. They will bring in 50 of the top underclassmen, 2025 and 2026 guys, for an intensive 2-day workout. And that is something, that you would never pass up that opportunity to work, with the best and play against the best. So, good news for him. And I posted a interview with him on Bucknuts, and I think he's pretty wide open right now, although I think Ohio State, certainly with his brother there, is the team to beat for him. And if he does pick Ohio State, where does that leave Ohio State in terms of Underwood or anybody else at that position? Do you only take one quarterback for 2025 and he's it? Or if a guy who's a top 20 player nationally falls into your lap and says, hey, I really want to check you out and come there, do you take 2? I mean, I don't know. It's why Ryan Day and Corey Dennis and Brian Hartline get paid the big bucks.
I was impressed by Ryan Montgomery. I thought he strong arm, stronger than it was when I saw him last June at the 7-on-7 camps at Ohio State. But Bryce Underwood, I said it before, he looks like a created player. And he's listed at 6'2" on 24/7, and he's a legit 6'4" out there. He was standing head and shoulders and broad shoulders ahead of everybody else, and just really, really strong arm. And a lot of times you're watching them throw one-on-ones, and guys are trying to feather it in and show their touch, and he didn't need to do that. He was throwing ropes, and then, he had touch when he needed it, but he's a guy that puts the ball right where it was supposed to be. He was really, really impressive. And again, Montgomery had a good day as well.
If I'm wrong on that Underwood thing about him not liking Michigan, I apologize. That was just maybe something that, and I guess I could be. I see a Sam Webb story from our network. 5-star quarterback Bryce Underwood, unaffected by Jaden Davis pledge, still high on Michigan. So that was just something somebody said on the sideline at Obetz. Did not come from him or any of his family. So please take that comment that I made with a grain of salt. I could be off on that, but yeah, he's got the look of a winner, and wherever he ends up, they're going to get a great one, no doubt.
No, Steve, some knucklehead is letting us know in the chat that we should all be perfect all the time. There should never, ever be a mistake.
Well, the thing is, like, you look at CJ Carr in 2024, a state of Michigan quarterback going to Notre Dame. 2023 had Dante Moore, state of Michigan quarterback, going to UCLA. It was assumed that the state of Michigan quarterbacks who are recruited nationally just don't stay in the state. That's all.
Exactly. All right. Tony let us know before we came on that Brett McMurphy had tweeted out right when the show was starting, or sometime prior to that, the Big Ten strongly considering removing its requirement for league teams to play a Power 5 non-conference team annually starting in 2024. Sources told Action Network. USC, UCLA join in 24, of course. Now, I would say over the years that Minnesota, Rutgers, Maryland come to mind as being the biggest culprits there. Of course, people are going to, grab Michigan, but they generally play, to be fair, a Power 5 of note.
Yeah, it's really weird. I'm not sure what to make of this. I think some of this could be kind of baked into the cake here is the wear and tear on going to USC or UCLA every other year, whatever it's going to be for these East Coast and Midwest teams, could result in a loss, somewhere along the line that, an unforeseen loss. And maybe they're just saying, hey, we don't need to take any unnecessary chances here. So if it's the right thing for your school to not play a Power 5 team, then you don't have to. I think Ohio State in particular has always prided itself on playing a Power 5 team if it can. There have been years, obviously, where that was not possible because of contractual obligations and different things that have come up. But I don't look at it as that big of a thing. That could be something to help, some of the lower rung teams get bowl eligible, as opposed to something that's going to be a drawback. Because, if somebody's 10-2, they're going to the playoff. 10-2 Big Ten teams going to the playoff, regardless of who they played. So, not playing Virginia or Virginia Tech or TCU or whatever in a non-conference game isn't going to matter. If you get to 10-2 and you're in the Big Ten conference, you're probably going to the playoff.
Yeah, my whole argument with the playoff expansion was that it should allow teams to play more big time games because a loss wouldn't hurt you as much. And so I hate the idea of this rule, but Steve, I hadn't thought about it, but you make a great point where maybe it's about lessening the load on the players. I initially view it as simply a TV thing in terms of NBC, Fox, and CBS wanting more games, and they would lose a game if, say, a Big Ten team is playing at an SEC stadium. So that would lose inventory for them. And so they pay all this money. They want as much inventory as they can get, even if it's Michigan against Hawaii, they need to fill those spots. I don't know how much. TV money drives so much, so that always has to be the first place you look. It's like when somebody gets murdered, you look at the spouse. It's when something happens in college football, you look at the TV deals.
It's the quantity over quality discussion, though, because there'll be more games per se in Big Ten stadiums if they don't have to do home and homes with Power 5 teams. But the flip side is who really is going to sit down on a Saturday afternoon and watch, Youngstown State versus Ohio State instead of Ohio State versus TCU. You know what I mean? It's like you might get 1/5 the audience for that. And so I don't know. I guess it's a push-pull. But I do believe Ohio State's going to continue to play the 9 Big Ten games and another Power 5 every year for into perpetuity, I would think. Especially
since they're scheduled out in like another 15 years on non-conference opponents.
Don't get rid of those Alabama and Georgia ones yet. I'm going to try and make it another 5 or 10 years, so maybe I'll get to see some of those in person.
And don't cancel this series and buy it out like Michigan did with UCLA.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I would like to see somebody take over scheduling and wipe out the teams, wipe out the schools, and say, you no longer create your own schedule. We take it over. We have a governing body that takes over scheduling, and then there's a formula. It's not just a committee like the playoff committee where they can do whatever they want. No, there are restrictions placed on it. There's a formula, but then there can be some nuance to the formula to create attractive matchups or regional matchups that make a little bit more sense than, North Carolina State going out to Oregon State to play just because the records match or something. But you have a formula, then you put some nuance to the formula and you take it out of the hands of the schools, and you don't allow Baylor to go 30 years without playing a ranked team non-conference, and Minnesota to not play anyone for 5 years. They finally have North Carolina this year. It's just
Florida silly. On the road out of state against non-conference opponent.
1991.
But before we get out of here, I just got an email from Bet Online. The Big Ten favorite right now, Ohio State 8-5, Michigan 9-5. So the Buckeyes, the favorite in the Big Ten right now.
Wow. Place your bets.
Do we know where Penn State stands?
Oh yeah, they are 6-1. They are third, and then it's Wisconsin, then Iowa, then Minnesota, then Maryland, and Illinois, and Nebraska are both 50-1. Then Michigan State 75-1 seems a little low. Indiana, Northwestern, Purdue, Rutgers, all 100-1. I would put Michigan State into that all 100-1 as well, perhaps, because I think they are going to be very bad.
Peyton Thorne and Keon Coleman. See ya, all in one day. All right, Tony, Buckeye Weekly, Buckeye Huddle, and College Football Playbook.
Yep, you can find me at any of those places. Also, obviously on Twitter, as you see there. And I just dropped an interview with Marlon Graham, the 5-star receiver commit this morning. So go ahead and check that out at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
Steve.
Bucknuts.com and at Steve Hellwagon with an EN on Twitter. And so glad that we get to come and have this catharsis every week where we get to work through everything we're thinking about with Ohio State and Big Ten football and college football. It really kind of brings me into focus, I think, on a lot of the things I want to try and accomplish in the week ahead. So I still have more content from that camp I want to post. I was at a basketball tournament on Friday night and Saturday morning, so I got more from that I want to post. And just eager to get through May here and see what comes up.
Well, after
our weekly therapy session.
What's that, Tony?
It's our weekly therapy session.
And it's free too. It doesn't cost me a dime. So
Hey, after 212 shows, it's good to know that you're getting something in return. I kind of questioned that for the last 4 years, so that's good to know. We always appreciate Steve for posting the show on Bucknuts as well. And we have placed the link to College Football Playbook in the chat. So, folks, it's right there. It's easy. Just click on that. Check it out with Tony and others there on College Football Playbook. All right, guys, therapy session next week, probably on Wednesday. But we will let you know when you need the therapy, and we will book it then. And everybody keep those notifications alive so you know when we're going to get together for to work through some issues. All right, here on Ohio State Buckeyes Live next week. See ya.
take care.